And at 10, Springtrap. It seems weird to me that Springtrap isn't Fredtrap. Like, why would William use a Spring Bonnie suit instead of a Spring Freddy, the mascot of the company? Maybe Bonnie is a more popular animatronic despite not being front and center, or maybe it's because using Golden Freddy would bring too much attention because he is the mascot of the company. Maybe both. I don't know. But in-universe reasons aside, I think I know why this is the case in our world. It's common knowledge by now that Scott Cawthon, while developing FNAF 1, was given nightmares after being jump-scared by Bonnie during the playtest of the first game. This didn't happen with any other animatronic, so Scott ended up finding Bonnie to be the scariest. Maybe that's why Afton chose it, because Scott wanted the last game of the series to be scarier. And before you get mad, in an interview, Scott Cawthon said that FNAF 3 was planned to be the end of the series, so Springtrap would have been burnt, and that's why the puppet was there on some rare screens. However, the community was disappointed with the Springtrap jump scare, and that's why he made FNAF 4, and then 5, 6, 7, and 8. Since Scott thought Bonnie was the scariest though, it only makes sense for the killer to use the suit in the intended final game. But I can't be sure because I've never talked to Scott. Like, Scott, hit me up though. Let's chat. And at 9, Bonnie Run Run Run. Bonnie run, 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 faster than my Foxy. Oh god. It's actually interesting though, since in the original FNAF 1 trailer, we never see Foxy or Pirate's Cove for that matter, and the only running animatronic is Bonnie. I find this odd because, well, why wasn't Foxy there? Myself and others think that perhaps it was because he wasn't added. You see, as you playtest the game, you find balancing issues and bugs that you need to fix, and as of this trailer, perhaps the game was too difficult with a giant bunny that was always sprinting at you, or perhaps it was too frequent or it was causing issues. So in an effort to balance the game or make it scarier, Scott added Foxy and Pirate's Cove to make Bonnie less overpowered. I mean, other than Bonnie, only Foxy comes down that hall if you let him. It was also probably a way to fix the just never opening the camera strategy that Foxy does end up preventing, and in Ultimate Custom Night, the two animatronics that you can see in Pirate's Cove are Bonnie and Foxy. Interesting. Also guys, if you're enjoying the video, be sure you hit like and subscribe for more videos like this because, you know, the algorithm hates everyone and it lets us know what you want to see more of. And at 8, Easter Bonnie. The Easter Bonnie animatronic from FNAF AR is something that we never really understood. Like, why did Fazbear Entertainment create an Easter version of Bonnie? Like, I get that it's a riff on the Easter Bunny, but do they use this when the place opens around Easter? Because, like, if not, it just seems like a waste. I have an idea though. What if they're using it to try to take over holidays? Think about it. I know it sounds outlandish, but I mean, like, Fine Bros tried to trademark the word react, so. They also have multiple holidays represented with special animatronics. Easter Bonnie and Chocolate Bonnie, Liberty Chica and Firework Freddy, Katrina Toy Chica, Heartsick Baby and Blackheart Bonnie, Shamrock Freddy. There's even an unused Easter Chica, for crying out loud. That's 4 separate holidays that Fazbear animatronics have no business in, with animatronics representing them. Like, why? Like, I feel, personally, like Fazbear Entertainment is the FNAF universe's Disney. Like, they want to literally own everything, and this includes the holidays. They want $1 every time someone wears green on St. Patty's Day. Every time someone ends up in a dumpster drunk on St. Patty's, they want a nickel. I'm not speaking from experience. Every time a kid finds an Easter egg, it has to have a token for Freddy Fazbear's inside. That's what this company wants. A total, absolute monopoly. And you know what? They're close. They really are. And at 7, Toy Bonnie. The FNAF 2 toy animatronics are pretty interesting. They're meant to be able to access criminal databases to detect predators and killers so that another missing children's incident doesn't happen. However, they attack us even though we haven't done anything wrong, at least to our knowledge. But remember, these animatronics are meant to protect kids, not adults. And as of night 7 in FNAF 2, we play as someone who looks exactly like the one who caused the missing children's incident. But I don't think that's what's happening here. I think these animatronics were intentionally flawed so that they would get scrapped. And look, that's exactly what happens. Why do I think this? Well, who made them? William Afton. We know this because he is the suit technician we hear about in FNAF 3, and we see him helping someone into a Golden Freddy suit in FNAF 4's 8-bit minigames. So William was the one who made these animatronics, and he's also the one who caused the missing children's incident. So if these characters were meant to detect him, wouldn't he want them to just attack every adult so that they would end up being deemed defective, and then he would have another killing ground again? I mean, like, it makes sense to me. He could have just not programmed himself in, but honestly, that would probably be even more work, so he might as well make them horrible. Sounds easier. And at 6, similar to Freddy. Last time I talked about how some fans think that Bonnie's face was remade using Freddy's as a template, hence why they look slightly similar. However, this time I want to discuss how not only their faces look similar, but how the rest of them does as well. Looking at the animatronics, each have a bow tie and no buttons, whereas no other animatronic in the first game has a bow tie or tie of any kind for that matter, unlike yours truly. They also have a similar body type, with their original versions basically being identical. And we know that Bonnie is meant to be blue, however this original version looks to be more purple than blue, which did confuse some people at the beginning. But if Bonnie was just a Freddy animatronic with different ears, that would explain the color difference between the original and the toy version. From what I understand about colors and how subtractive colors work, subtractive being when you subtract light from colors when adding them instead of adding it like you do on a computer, blue over Freddy's brown would result in the purplish color we see original Bonnie have. And I mean, like, if they already had another Freddy animatronic, it would be cheaper just to recolor it. So is Bonnie more than a Freddy face clone? And are they more alike than we first thought? Probably. I mean, it would save a lot of money. Halfway through in at number 5, leader. Sure, the place is called Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, but is Freddy the actual leader of the group? Sure, he's the one who's front and center and singing all the kids' favorite tunes, but he hardly does anything in the game. And he was originally going to do even less, only sticking around on the stage and scaring you if you ran out of power. And he was also hardly in the trailer for the first game. The trailer really featured Bonnie more, and honestly so do the games. Bonnie's the first animatronic to typically make a move towards you on each night. And Bonnie has quite a few versions as well, with 22 different versions in his own right, including the FNAF AR Springtrap and Glitchtrap skins. And Bonnie is the other animatronic that got introduced with a shadow version in FNAF 2. So is this giant bunny more than meets the eye? Is this like a puppet master scenario where Bonnie is manipulating Freddy to get what he wants? I mean, like, the main killer does use a Bonnie suit after all. In at 4, Withered Bonnie. We assume that the Withered animatronics are just decommissioned versions of the original 5 animatronics that were then improved for the opening of the FNAF 1 location. However, if that was the case, wouldn't they have found bodies inside those animatronics? In addition to that, look at FNAF 1 Bonnie in comparison to Withered Bonnie. Besides the missing face, do you notice anything different? That's right. Buttons. Withered Bonnie has 2 buttons on his chest, whereas FNAF 1 Bonnie doesn't. So how would these be the same animatronic? I guess you could say that they removed the buttons, but the bow tie also just seems off. And as we can tell from the FNAF VR parts and service minigames, the bow tie is a part of the animatronic, not like an actual bow tie that can be easily changed. Sure, this one is withered, but withered obviously in this context means partially destroyed. So why would buttons stick around only to later be removed? If they're on there after that, they're on there good. It just doesn't make sense to me. Also, the whole they would have found bodies in there, unless Afton was the one attending to them, but I mean, there would have at least been someone else helping. It's not like he would have done it all by himself. Unless maybe he did, I don't know. Getting close to the end in at number 3, Rockstar Bonnie. Now what's really confusing to me is Rockstar Bonnie. Introduced in FNAF 6, Rockstar Bonnie was in essence just an excuse to make more versions of animatronics for merch reasons. At least I feel that way. But Rockstar Bonnie looks like more than that, since it has a similar style to the FNAF 1 and Withered Bonnies combined, along with 2 extra toes. But what does this mean? Well, some assume that this meant it was the real repaired version of Withered Bonnie, since it was in the FNAF 6 location, and that meant that it would have to burn, because, you know, that whole thing was meant to just burn off everything having to do with Afton's killing spree, and Withered Bonnie was most likely the one that had the body in it, so having a kid inside would actually be better in this scenario rather than not, which is weird. Others thought that it was just a new animatronic entirely, but I'm here to set the record straight. Rockstar Bonnie is actually a revamped version of the original Bonnie, whatever version that may be, assumingly the version we see in FNAF 1. According to the at time of filming still currently canon fast facts, because they might be deemed uncanon later. An unused text file from FNAF AR reads, Rockstar Bonnie was developed from the original Bonnie for use in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria franchise operations, meaning that Rockstar Bonnie is just the original Bonnie with extra steps. So there you go, a theory combined with fact. Perfect unionization. Penultimately, in at number 2, deep connection. Now last time I mentioned how Jeremy is the most used name in FNAF history, with multiple different characters having the name over various games. But what if I told you that they may be closer than we thought? Well, the first Jeremy is the one who gets killed by Afton and shoved inside the Bonnie suit. The next Jeremy gets his frontal lobe bitten by an animatronic in FNAF 2 and promoted to day shift. But the third Jeremy is where things get freaky. The third Jeremy was a playtester for FNAF VR, and was the tester before Tape Girl took over. Why did she take over though? Because Jeremy kicked the bucket thanks to being driven mad by Glitchtrap. Okay, so what? Really? I mean, like, why are you saying so what? This guy cut his face off with an office paper cutter, for God's sakes. He literally cut his face off thanks to being driven mad by Glitchtrap, a version of Bonnie, might I add. However, that's not where this connection gets freaky. Who else gets their face removed? Withered Bonnie. Withered Bonnie's whole thing is that he's missing his face. There is no way that is a coincidence, especially when Withered Bonnie shows up in the final pizza party minigame room. Too many Jeremies and too many connections to Bonnie for that to be unintentional. There has to be something there. I hope. Finally, in at number 1, Ship Trap. It's always been a mystery to me why FNAF AR even exists. Not from like a merchandising perspective or anything in our world, but because they're using this surface to try to repair their reputation in their world, but these animatronics are hurting people. Like what the hell? Why? They know about it too. We learned that from the emails. But what irks me the most is that they're shipping out versions of Springtrap. Why? What? Why on earth are you shipping out versions of your infamous killer? We know that people know what he did, as evidenced by the man in room 1280, so why are you doing this willingly? Some people have said it's because they didn't know, they just thought that he was a version of Spring Bonnie, but he's literally called Springtrap in the menu. If they didn't think he was Springtrap, they would have called him Spring Bonnie. The name Springtrap implies that someone was trapped by the spring locks. It makes me so angry. I don't get it. For God's sakes, like, do they want a bad reputation?
Number 10, first as in... On part 1 of this list, Connor, for his number 10 point, decided to talk about the UCN's statement from Chica that she was the first and that she had seen it all. For my list, I also wanted to talk about this sentiment, but focus on a different meaning for said claim. What if Chica wasn't talking about being the first victim, but instead was actually somehow talking about being the first animatronic to have been made? Just because the spirits possess the animatronics doesn't mean they might not also be able to tap into the memory banks of said animatronic they are possessing, and perhaps blend their own knowledge and personality with that animatronic that they possess. We know that Fredbear's Diner is often thought of as being one of the first restaurants, implying that Chica couldn't be really the first animatronic, as she's not known to have been there. But what if there was another, yet unknown previous restaurant that we haven't seen in the games that she was a part of? Or what if she'd simply been made but wasn't being actively used at the time? Or was another Fredbear Diner animatronic that was like repurposed somehow? Number 9, Phone Guy. The death of Phone Guy is still a bit of a mystery. Many think that Freddy or Golden Freddy were the animatronics responsible, but it's more than likely that all the animatronics and not just those two were in on it. After all, the last recording from FNAF 1 where we clearly hear Phone Guy talking to us, we also seem to hear noises that come from each of the animatronics present in the game. Except perhaps for Bonnie, well, we hear a groan, which I suppose could be Chica or Bonnie. Or it could be both of them just gasping and groaning there. I can't do the sound, but it sounds something like that. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more scary FNAF lists, maybe involving Chica, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Also, I know you want more scary FNAF Chica lists. I see all you Chica fans out there, I see ya. Number 8, gender identity. What if Chica's gender identity doesn't actually come from the animatronic's appearance as female, but instead comes from the spirit that possesses her? While still yet fully unconfirmed, it's heavily implied, and I mean heavily implied, and mostly accepted among the FNAF community that Susie is the one possessing Chica. Oddly enough, based on the tombstones that we see at the end of FNAF 3, Susie appears to be the only inherently female name. Now, of course, Susie could be a boy's name, and who knows, Fritz could be a girl's name. We don't really know for sure, but I'm just talking about implications. This could imply that it is actually Susie and the others who possess the suits who imbue the suit with their true gender identity, as opposed to it being based on the animatronic's name or their appearance. Because like I said, Susie seems to be the only female name there, and then Chica's like the only female animatronic of the main ones, I believe. I mean, I don't know, they are animatronics. So what is their sex or their gender? Number 7. Teenager. Based on Chica's high school years, it also seems highly possible that Susie might not be as young as we think she is, and could even be a teenager. The problem with this theory is that it seems to contrast with Susie's appearance in Pizzeria Simulator, where we see her face seemingly reflected in the game during the Fruity Maze minigame. Here she appears younger, but based on Toy Chica's high school years, the episodic interludes from UCN, it seems as though we could be seeing a very strange and likely distorted glimpse into Susie's life. Although she wasn't always a murderous animatronic, she likely was a student who possibly had lots of crushes on the boys at school. And so that part could be true. Which would then mean, if those were her memories, that she was a teenager? Number 6. Growing up. The other implication here with Toy Chica's high school years and it being Toy Chica who is shown with the other animatronics instead of Susie with other students is that this is meant to represent the spirits who possess the animatronics, like Susie, are actually still maturing and aging as time goes on, despite them not being alive and no longer having bodies. The high school years could actually be meant to show us that Susie has possessed Chica for such a long time, for so long, that she has moved from being a kid into a teenager mentally as the years have gone on. So maybe these spirits are actually growing up in the animatronics, which, I don't know, is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. It's something. Number 5. Food connection. We know that Chica has a thing with food, right? But what does this mean for her character? Is it Chica's programming that makes her obsessed with snacks, or is it the spirit that possesses her? Or is it meant to be some other more insidious connection from the games to real life? On my Freddy's theory list, I talked about a certain real-world case involving killings that happened at Chuck E. Cheese in 1993 in Aurora, Colorado. While Freddy's connection to one of the victims in that case is more loose in comparison, Chica's seems to be more solid. The first victim in that incident was attacked and killed while cleaning up the salad bar. She also happened to be female. Both of these facts seem to connect that victim to Chica, who also presents as a female and who is associated with food in the games. If the games are inspired by that real world event, but it kinda seems like they are based on all the evidence that we have. Number 4. Out of this world. Is Logbook Chica even a real animatronic? If she was, where did she come from? Is she the original model but extremely degraded and worn down? I mean, it seems so. She appears in the 8th Fazbear Frights book, Gumdrop Angel, in the 3rd story, What We Found. Here she appears to torment Hudson, but something interesting is that Hudson seemingly works at the Fazbear Fright location, which we see in FNAF 3. If, of course, this is the same reality and same location as from the games. However, it should be noted that in FNAF 3, the only real animatronic we saw was Springtrap. So if this is the same reality, where was Logbook Chica in the games? Based on what we've seen in the games, or I guess haven't seen, I suppose, this Chica theory actually opens the door to a bigger general theory, that the books and games from the franchise exist in alternate realities, and that the FNAF multiverse is perhaps bigger than we could even possibly fathom. Number 3. Voice mimicry. Logbook Chica also seems to have some interesting abilities when she appears in the 8th Fazbear Frights book story, What We Found. She was shown as being able to mimic the voice of someone Hudson cared about, his crush, Faith. When Chica attacks him, he attempts to fight her off, but she manages to make him pause for a moment in his attack when she mimics Faith's voice and says, "I like you." However, eventually Hudson resumes fighting back and eventually defeats Logbook Chica, but this still makes me wonder, if this Chica was once the original model, is it possible that Chica has had the ability to mimic voices all along? Is it possible that the newer models also possess this ability, like across the board? We know some animatronics that can do this, but I feel like Chica's never been one of them. Number 2, Phantom Logbook Chica. An alternate theory is that the books and games are set in the same reality but allow us to get a glimpse of untold stories and unseen characters from that world. If that were true, however, then it would be likely that Logbook Chica is actually not a real character, but is instead a hallucination, much like the phantom animatronics that we experience in FNAF 3. Logbook Chica in that case could be seen as an alternative phantom animatronic all of her own. This would also mean that Chica likely never really had or was capable of voice mimicry, like we saw her use on Hudson. In that case, it would have been Hudson's imagination that gave her his crush, Faith's voice. Number 1, Chica's Party World. I have more questions than answers for this theory, but still, it's something that I think we need to talk about. Especially because Funtime Chica was so hyped before the release of Sister Location, people were so excited to see Funtime Chica, maybe a little too excited, and then she just never appeared. It turns out that this is because Funtime Chica was currently rented out and in use in Chica's Party World. At least that's what the trail of breadcrumbs we were fed led us to believe. But Chica's Party World is never mentioned in Sister Location and hasn't been brought up in the games ever since we learned of it through the source code for the Sister Locations teasers. So where is Chica's Party World, if it ever existed? And more importantly, when is Chica's Party World? And is Funtime Chica still out there, potentially? Or is this just an Easter egg loose end that will just never be resolved? I have more questions, like I said, than answers, but let me know what you think in the comments.
In at 10, William Afton. Before Sister Location's release, we could only speculate as to the name of the individual we knew as Springtrap. Tons of names were made. Dave, Dylan, Trent, Kyle, Steven, you name it, and someone had claimed that this was Springtrap's name. However, the introduction of Springtrap's true identity, William Afton, was actually in the FNAF novels, more particularly The Silver Eyes, the first novel in the series. This was mostly shown to the masses by Matt Pat and his theory on the subject, but the response was actually practically divided, with a load of people glad that we finally at least had some form of canon name for the character, and others upset because Matt Pat had used the books for his theory, which don't share the same continuity as the games, despite sharing the same canon of Five Nights at Freddy's. This theory, however, was ultimately confirmed to be true during Sister Location's starting scene, where we first hear Afton speak, talking about Baby's various features.
There's no doubting what you've achieved on a technical level. These are clearly state-of-the-art. There are just certain design choices that were made for these robots that we don't fully understand. We were hoping that you could shed some light on those.
She can dance. She can sing. She's equipped with a built-in helium tank for inflating balloons right at her fingertips. She can take song requests. She can even dispense ice cream.
With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
In at 9, Eternal Torment. Ultimate Custom Night was a really interesting turning point in the FNAF series. The original Afton storyline was finally at a close, and this game was the ultimate capstone to that, with some important lore hints in the form of voiced lines that play when you get killed. However, this game still fits into the FNAF story, and serves as a link between the original story and the new one, the new story being Afton trying to escape the video game world that he got himself locked in. But we originally interpreted this game all wrong, since we initially thought that William was burning in hell, or at least stuck in purgatory. But as all Supernatural fans know, purgatory is just a giant forest where monsters kill each other for all eternity, not a security guard office where you have to fight off countless animatronics. But this idea, despite being solid with incredible amounts of evidence, was proven wrong thanks to the original final book in the Fazbear Fright series called Bunny Call. Wow, Scott really likes to act like he's ending things with Springtrap and then just totally doesn't. However, in this book, the story of the man in room 1280 tells the true tale of what's going on in this game. Afton is in the hospital, horrifically burned after the FNAF 6 fire, and is stuck in a coma, much like Crying Child was in FNAF 4. Eventually he wakes up though, which I'm guessing is him beating 50/20 mode, and is brought to a Fazbear warehouse where he promptly explodes and possesses a hard drive. Fun. And at 8, Bribery. The fact that William wasn't caught, or that everything seems to go so perfectly for him, has to have an explanation. It's not like this guy just got that lucky. No way, not in Five Nights at Freddy's. There has to be a reason behind why the cops didn't check inside the bleeding and horrifically smelling animatronics. We know that this is the case because the newspapers from FNAF 1 confirm that the restaurants shut down thanks to animatronics smelling like death and leaking mucus and blood. Here's a quote from one of those clippings. "Police were contacted when parents reportedly noticed what appeared to be blood and mucus around the eyes and mouths of the mascots. One parent likened them to reanimated carcasses. How were the bodies not found then? They could have tested the blood, found that it was similar to the parents if they didn't have any of the kids' DNA on file, and then easily have gotten a warrant to take the animatronics. But they didn't. The dead bodies were still never found and Afton was released. How the actual hell is that possible? The only way I can see, personally, is bribery. Like, William had to have been bribing these people, and they had to know that he was locked in the back room of Fazbear Frights, because why would they tear down a random wall to find that animatronic? It's impossible. There's no way that he just got released out of random chance. No one is that lucky. No. And at 7, the arm. We don't know too much about the upcoming FNAF game Security Breach. So far we know that there are at least 5 new animatronics and a whole pizzaplex to explore, and the game will have a day and night cycle, but that Afton will also somehow be involved thanks to the appearance of Vanny, who will serve as the antagonist to this game. However, in the gameplay trailer released for the game by PlayStation, at the very end we see a seemingly metallic arm reach out from behind some boxes. Some believe this to be the arm of the Stitch Wraith, others think that this is William. I think it's the latter, since we can see the reflection of purple light coming off the arm. And Springtrap, aka good old Willie Afton, is known for being the purple guy. This combined with the fact that he's trying to escape the game indicates that he will in fact be successful, and his goal of achieving eternal or everlasting life will be complete, since now he exists as code, and can, I'm guessing, jump from animatronic to animatronic. And that's probably going to end up being a feature in the game after Security Breach, if there is one. And at 6, Glitchtrap. Glitchtrap is very clearly meant to be William Afton in his code form. As Tape Girl says, he was created after they scanned a hard drive they were given that was meant to help with coding the AI for the animatronics. However, while this is evidently William, it's theorized by many that this is meant to be based on the original suit that Afton wore to lure kids away, or at least try to, since thanks to the newly released Faz Facts, which I covered in detail in another video, link is in the iCard, we now know that the first animatronics William built, or at least some of the first, had claws that could hide away items, which is a feature only present in the Funtime animatronics. So the Funtimes were built before the spring-lock suits used in Fredbear's Family Diner, at least they could be. So this would have to have been a suit used at the company before they even had animatronics. And he was also planning on going on a killing spree already, so we can always assume the worst. Maybe there are more kids that went missing out of their homes like suggested in the Midnight Motors minigame. Who knows? Halfway through it at number 5, Survivor. The issue of how William was surviving so much was really on everyone's mind. He made it through being spring-locked, he survived 2 fires, he was really somehow the most iron-willed individual in the series, and we have no idea why. Or at least, we had no idea why. The main theory was that William had injected himself with Remnant, which is the molten form of metal possessed by a soul, which would have been the original 5 animatronics. This idea, from what I can tell, came from the books, since the novel version of William becomes incredibly obsessed with Remnant and trying to use it to grant himself everlasting life, like some weird kind of soul vampire, also known as a ginger. This seemed like a solid idea though, and explained away many of the random things he got through, but had one crucial flaw. The only way to destroy Remnant is with a fire, so he would have had to make it out of the FNAF 3 fire unscathed, which as we saw in Sister Location's ending, he didn't, since he was literally at the burnt down Fazbear Fright. Does anyone else find it slightly annoying that Fazbear Fright is both the name of the FNAF 3 location and the series of books revolving around like the short stories? Because I certainly do. It's very annoying. And at 4, Miketrap. The Miketrap theory came out after Sister Location's secret ending, where Michael makes his speech with the famous line of "I'm going to come find you." After saying "I'm going to come find you" a second time, Springtrap appears at the burnt down Fazbear Fright. This one little moment caused some fans to assume that Springtrap appearing meant that it was Springtrap who was talking, making them think that Mike was in fact the one in the Springtrap suit. Hence the name Miketrap. This, however, was simply to illustrate that Springtrap survived the fire, like we had been assuming, since Scott said in a Reddit or Steam post to check out MatPat's conclusion on this debate, and MatPat had concluded that it was William in the Springtrap suit. Since in FNAF 2's minigames he was able to drive, and if he was Michael, we couldn't have been him in Sister Location. It wouldn't make sense. But that wouldn't be the end of the Miketrap debate. Haha, just wait until the next game comes out. Getting close to the end in number 3, Survived. After FNAF 3's ending, when we learned about the fire, we thought that that was it, at least for around 20 seconds, until people started brightening the final image like we know to do with FNAF by now. And that's when we saw Springtrap sitting in the shadows behind the stuffed animal that was the image for the news article about the fire. Now, I have no idea how the photographer didn't see that, or if William was was bribing news outlets or whatever, but this is absolutely terrifying. And it really is what started us down the rabbit hole of having to jump through several hoops to find more lore clues and ideas. Brightening this one image made us have to comb through the files of a mobile game. Think about that. Anyway, this image set us on the path to thinking William survived the fire and that this would not be the last FNAF game. I don't know if this was supposed to be the point of the Easter egg, like if it was somehow to allow for more games in the series if Scott wanted to, but hey, either way, it happened. And here we are, 5 games, 15 books, and more later. Still questioning everything about this series, so time well spent. Penultimately in at number 2, Spring vs. Scrap. Then Ultimate Custom Night came out, and the Mike vs. Wooltrap debate was on the rise again, thanks to the introduction of Springtrap, who people thought was Scott adding a new character so that both Afton men could be Springlock victims. This was incredibly frustrating for me, but it was ironed out when Scott referred everyone to MapPat's conclusion on the debate, like I said before, cause you know. And in Ultimate Custom Night, Springtrap says, "I always come back," which turns into William's signature line because let's be honest, he does always come back. So that seemingly settled it, but there are for some reason still fans who believe that Springtrap and or Scraptrap is still Michael, which just boggles my mind. But when people are dead set on something, you can't really convince them otherwise, just like how you can't convince me that Mike isn't a robot, even though in this debate there is confirmation that Spring and Scraptrap are William, but hey. Finally, in at number 1, Survive x2. William surviving the FNAF 6 fire though was much harder to believe when it came out at first, at least before Bunny Call was released. However, some fans seem to note that during the final cutscene of FNAF 6 during Henry's speech, while the other animatronics were engulfed by flames, Scraptrap was ahead of them.
There's more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, friend.
This was especially hard to believe given that we thought Ultimate Custom Night took place in hell, which is really impossible to go to unless you die. Well, with me being the exception. I party with Satan on the regular. He strangely can't hold his liquor. Either way, this was all proven to be true when Bunny Call was released and William was in the hospital in room 1280, which I have to say has got to be one of the biggest trolls in the entire series, or like at least like one of them. Because like, come on Scott, really? You had to do that to me? To us? Yeah, thank you, Scott. Huh.